Hi, I'm Sarah Martinez. For 15 years, my family believed I was a Navy dropout who couldn't make it through basic training. But at my brother's Navy SEAL ceremony, when his commanding general locked eyes with me and said, "Colonel, you're here?" Everything changed. I'm standing here in the back of this massive ceremony hall at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado, watching 300 of America's finest celebrate the graduation of SEAL Class 348. The air is thick with pride, honor, and that particular brand of military precision that makes your spine straighten automatically. Dress whites gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, families clutching programs like sacred texts, and everywhere you look, there are chest-puffing parents whose sons just earned the most elite designation in naval warfare. And then there's me, 33 years old, wearing a simple black pantsuit I bought at Target, standing as far from my family as I can manage, while still technically being at the same event. I've positioned myself behind a concrete pillar, partially hidden, like I'm some kind of uninvited guest at my own brother's moment of triumph. Because that's exactly what I am, isn't it? The family disappointment. The one who tried and failed. The cautionary tale my parents tell when they want to illustrate the difference between their children. My phone buzzes with a text from my cousin Jessica. "So proud of Marcus. At least someone in your family made it in the military." The emoji feels like a knife twist. At least someone. As if I didn't try. As if I didn't want it just as badly. I watch my parents, Robert and Linda Martinez, sitting in the third row with perfect posture and matching expressions of pure parental joy. Dad's wearing his old Marine dress blues. He pulls them out for special occasions like this, even though he retired 20 years ago. The ribbons on his chest catch the light as he leans forward, not wanting to miss a single moment of his son's glory. Mom's dabbing at her eyes with tissues, but she's smiling so wide, I can see it from 50 yards away. She's already posted 6 photos to Facebook this morning, each one with captions like "Our SEAL" and "Dreams do come true." And my personal favorite, "So grateful one of our children answered the call to serve." One of our children. Have you ever been the family disappointment while hiding a truth that would shock everyone? Let me know in the comments, because right now I'm wondering if I'm the only person in America dealing with this particular brand of psychological torture. The ceremony begins with the national anthem, and I watch 300 people rise as one. Military precision at its finest. The flag unfurls and I feel that familiar tightening in my chest. The one that comes with years of standing at attention. Of saluting that same flag in places my family will never know about for reasons I can never explain. But I'm not supposed to know that feeling, am I? I'm supposed to be the sister who washed out after 6 months. The one who came home with her tail between her legs and never talked about what happened at basic training. The keynote speaker takes the podium. Some admiral whose name I recognize but whose face I'm seeing for the first time. He starts the standard speech about honor, courage, and commitment. About the brotherhood of warriors. About sacrifice and service to something greater than yourself. I could recite this speech in my sleep. My brother Marcus steps forward with his class, 47 men who've endured 24 weeks of the most brutal training the U.S. military has to offer. He looks exactly like what Central Casting would order if they needed a Navy SEAL. 6'2", shoulders like a linebacker, jaw that could cut glass. Even from this distance, I can see the confidence radiating off him like heat. He's worked his entire life for this moment. Ever since he was 8 years old and Dad started taking him to Marine Corps birthday balls, Marcus knew he wanted to be a warrior. He lifted weights in middle school, ran marathons in high school, studied military history in college. This ceremony is the culmination of everything he's ever wanted, and I'm genuinely happy for him. That's the twisted part. I love my brother, and he deserves this moment. He's earned it through pure dedication and refusal to quit. The fact that my family uses his success as a weapon against my supposed failure isn't his fault. At least Marcus made something of himself, I hear my father's voice echo in my memory. He said that 3 months ago at Christmas dinner, loud enough for the entire extended family to hear. Some people are cut out for military service and some people aren't. The unspoken end of that sentence hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. And some people try and fail spectacularly, embarrassing the family name in the process. My phone buzzes again. Another text, this time from my Aunt Carol. "Watching the live stream. Marcus looks so handsome. Must be hard for you to watch, though. Even my extended family's sympathy feels like sandpaper on an open wound. I shift my weight from one foot to the other, trying to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. This was a mistake. I should have stayed home. I could have watched the ceremony online like the rest of the extended family. Could have sent a congratulatory card and a check. Could have avoided this entire exercise in public humiliation. But I couldn't do that to Marcus. Whatever my family thinks of me, whatever story they've constructed about my supposed failure, my brother invited me to the most important day of his life. So here I am, standing in the shadows, watching him achieve everything I supposedly couldn't. The irony is so thick I could choke on it. The Admiral continues his speech, talking about the SEAL's motto, "The only easy day was yesterday." About how these men have proven they can endure anything, overcome any obstacle, face any enemy. The family's not along, probably thinking about their own son's journeys through Hell Week and beyond. I think about Hell Week too, but for different reasons. I think about lying in a hospital bed in Kandahar, listening to mortars fall outside, while I tried to piece together intelligence reports with a concussion and 3 broken ribs. I think about the easy day that involved 17 hours in a hide site, waiting for a target who never showed, while insurgents searched the compound 50 meters from my position. But I'm not supposed to have memories like those, am I? A burst of applause brings me back to the ceremony. The Admiral is introducing someone, a woman in army dress uniform with enough ribbons to stock a craft store. General Patricia Hayes, he says. She'll be presenting special recognition to some of the graduating SEALs. My blood turns to ice water. General Hayes scans the crowd as she approaches the podium, her movements sharp and purposeful. Her eyes sweep across the audience methodically, professionally, like she's conducting reconnaissance. Which, knowing Pat Hayes, she probably is. Old habits die hard in our line of work. Our line of work. I press myself further behind the concrete pillar, hoping the shadows will swallow me whole. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I almost didn't come. This is why I've spent 15 years avoiding military events, avoiding anything that might put me in the same room as people who know the truth. General Hayes begins speaking about honor and sacrifice, about the young men who've earned their tridents through determination and brotherhood. Her voice carries that particular authority that comes from decades of command, from making life and death decisions in rooms where the wrong call means American soldiers don't come home. I know that voice. I've heard it in briefing rooms from Bragg to Bagram, delivering mission parameters and extraction protocols with the same calm precision she's using now to congratulate my brother's class. These men, she says, represent the finest tradition of American special operations. They've proven they can operate in the most challenging environments, under the most demanding circumstances, with precision and professionalism that makes our nation proud. More applause, more proud families, more pictures being taken for Facebook posts and Christmas cards. I check my watch. How much longer can this ceremony possibly last? My parents are recording everything on their phones, probably already planning the social media campaign that will document Marcus's success for months to come. Meanwhile, I'm calculating escape routes and wondering if anyone would notice if I just slipped out the back. But then Marcus steps forward for individual recognition, and despite everything, I find myself leaning around the pillar to get a better view. Whatever complicated feelings I have about my family's perception of me, I'm still proud of my little brother. He's worked for this moment his entire adult life. Petty Officer Marcus Martinez, General Hayes announces, reading from his file, distinguished himself during training through exceptional leadership and tactical proficiency. Prior to SEAL training, Petty Officer Martinez served with distinction aboard the USS Roosevelt, earning commendation for his performance during counter-piracy operations off the Horn of Africa. Dad's chest swells like a balloon about to pop. Mom's crying again, but the good kind of crying that comes with overwhelming pride. Even from my position in the cheap seats, I can feel their joy radiating across the ceremony hall. The Martinez family, General Hayes continues, has a proud tradition of military service. Petty Officer Martinez's father served 22 years in the Marine Corps, and the family's commitment to serving our nation represents the very best of American values. The camera crew pans across my parents, capturing their moment of perfect parental pride. Dad straightens his shoulders, probably remembering his own military career. Mom waves slightly, probably thinking about all the wives' club meetings where she'll get to talk about her son, the Navy SEAL. The family's commitment to serving our nation. I taste bile in the back of my throat. Unfortunately, Durns, General Hayes adds, and my heart stops completely. Not every family member could be with us today to share in this celebration. Not every family member. The implication hangs in the air like tear gas. Even General Hayes, who doesn't know our family's personal history, assumes that absent family members are absent for good reason. Deployment, maybe. Work obligations. Geographic distance. Not shame. Not the deliberate exclusion of the family member who supposedly couldn't hack it. I watch my parents' faces change subtly. The joy remains, but there's now a shadow of what? Embarrassment? Disappointment? The awareness that their perfect military family portrait has one glaring omission? Marcus accepts his trident, the gold pin that marks him as a Navy SEAL. The photographer captures the moment from every angle. General Hayes shakes his hand, exchanges a few words I can't hear from my position. More applause, more pride. And I realize I'm witnessing the crystallization of 15 years of family mythology. This ceremony will become the defining story of the Martinez family military legacy. Marcus the hero, following in Dad's footsteps, earning the respect and admiration of his peers and superiors, and by implication, me. The cautionary tale. The daughter who tried and failed, who couldn't measure up to the family standard, who probably shouldn't even be here taking up space at her successful brother's moment of triumph. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a group text from my extended family, all watching the live stream. Photo after photo of Marcus receiving his trident with comments like, "So proud," and "What a hero," and "Bob and Linda must be over the moon." And then, because the universe apparently has a sense of humor, Cousin David adds, "Too bad Sarah couldn't make it. Would have been nice for the whole family to be there." Too bad Sarah couldn't make it. I look around the ceremony hall at my actual physical presence 50 yards from my family, hidden behind a pillar like some kind of covert operative avoiding detection, which when I think about it is exactly what I am. I'm here, but I'm not here. Present, but invisible. Part of the family, but separate from it. The contradiction of my entire adult life, wrapped up in one awkward afternoon at a military ceremony. The crowd begins to move as the formal ceremony concludes. Families surge forward to congratulate their newly minted SEALs, to pose for pictures, to share in the moment they've all been waiting for. I watch my parents navigate through the crowd toward Marcus, their faces glowing with pride and satisfaction. This is my cue to leave. I've done my duty as a sister. I showed up. I witnessed Marcus's achievement. I can send him a congratulatory text later. Time to slip out the back before anyone notices the family disappointment lurking in the shadows. But as I turn to go, something catches my eye. A flash of movement near the front of the ceremony space. General Hayes is walking through the crowd, greeting families, sharing in the celebration. She's moving with purpose, like she's looking for someone. And then I realize with growing horror that she's moving in my direction. Our eyes meet across 50 yards of crowded ceremony hall, and I see recognition flash across her face like lightning. After 15 years of carefully maintained distance, of avoiding military events and keeping my head down, Patricia Hayes, General Patricia Hayes, has spotted me at my brother's Navy SEAL graduation. The woman who knows exactly what I did during those supposed 6 months of basic training failure. The woman who knows the real story of Colonel Sarah Martinez. She changes direction, cutting through the crowd with the kind of purposeful movement that makes junior officers step aside automatically. She's heading straight for me, and there's nowhere to hide. My 15-year cover is about to be blown in the most public way possible. At my brother's moment of triumph, surrounded by my family and 300 witnesses, the truth I've been hiding is about to come out. And I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen next. General Hayes is 20 yards away now, and I can see the wheels turning behind her eyes. She's calculating, the same way she used to calculate mission parameters in those cramped briefing rooms in Kabul. Distance, angles, potential complications. The crowd is thick enough that she could reach me without drawing too much attention, but thin enough that anyone paying attention would notice a general walking with purpose toward the back of the ceremony hall. I press myself further against the concrete pillar, hoping against hope that she'll change course. Maybe she didn't actually recognize me. Maybe it was just a passing resemblance to someone else. Maybe 15 years in civilian clothes are enough to throw off even Pat Hayes' legendary memory for faces. But I know better. Patricia Hayes remembers everyone who ever served under her command, especially the ones who pulled off missions that technically never happened. 15 yards now. I can see Staff Sergeant Williams from the 3rd Special Forces Group standing near the refreshment table, and his head turns slightly in my direction. Recognition flickers across his face, too, followed immediately by confusion. His hand starts to move toward his temple in an automatic salute, then stops halfway as his brain catches up with what he's seeing. Sarah Martinez, in civilian clothes, at a public ceremony, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Williams glances around, probably wondering if anyone else has noticed what he's noticed. His eyes find General Hayes, then track her trajectory toward my position. I see him reach the same conclusion I have. This is about to become very complicated, very quickly. 10 yards. General Hayes' expression is carefully neutral, but I know her well enough to read the subtle signs. The slight tightening around her eyes that means she's running scenarios. The almost imperceptible straightening of her shoulders that means she's made a decision and is committed to it. I have maybe 30 seconds before she reaches me, and I'm running out of options. I could try to slip away through the crowd, but that would just delay the inevitable and probably draw more attention. I could pretend not to see her, but Patricia Hayes didn't become a general by accepting being ignored. Or I could stand here and face whatever's about to happen, the same way I faced every other impossible situation she ever sent me into. 5 yards. Close enough now that I can see the slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Not amusement exactly, more like satisfaction. Like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. Behind her, I notice more military personnel starting to take notice. A Navy commander near the stage is squinting in my direction. 2 Marines by the exit are having a quiet conversation, and one of them keeps glancing my way. Word is spreading through the military community in that invisible way it always does. Something unusual is happening, and people are starting to pay attention. My family, thankfully, is still oblivious. Mom and Dad are posing for pictures with Marcus, taking turns wearing his trident, living their moment of perfect parental pride. They have no idea their family disappointment is about to become the center of attention. 3 yards. General Hayes slows her pace, probably giving me one last chance to acknowledge her presence gracefully. To make this easy on both of us. But 15 years of hiding doesn't disappear in 15 seconds. 15 years of letting my family believe I'm a failure. Of avoiding military events. Of keeping the truth buried so deep I sometimes forget it myself. That kind of conditioning doesn't just switch off because an old commanding officer shows up at an inconvenient moment. 2 yards. She's close enough now that I can smell her perfume. The same understated scent she wore during briefings in forward operating bases across 3 continents. Close enough that I can see the silver threads in her dark hair, the new lines around her eyes that come from 25 years of command responsibility. 1 yard. Colonel Martinez. Her voice is quiet, pitched just loud enough for me to hear, but not loud enough to carry to nearby conversations. Professional courtesy, giving me one last opportunity to control how this plays out. But the word hangs in the air between us like a live grenade. Colonel. Not Sarah. Not Ms. Martinez. Not even ma'am. Colonel Martinez. My mouth goes dry. General Hayes, I wasn't expecting to see you here. It's a stupid thing to say, and we both know it. She's here because she's presenting awards at a SEAL graduation ceremony. I'm here because it's my brother's graduation ceremony. Our presence here makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense is why Colonel Sarah Martinez is standing in the back of the ceremony hall, wearing civilian clothes and looking like she'd rather be invisible. I wasn't expecting to see you either, she says, her tone carefully neutral. Especially not. She gestures slightly toward my parents, who are still absorbed in their photo session with Marcus. Given the circumstances, The circumstances. Such a diplomatic way to reference the fact that my family has spent 15 years believing I'm a military washout. It's complicated, I say, which might be the understatement of the decade. General Hayes nods slowly. Her eyes scan the crowd, taking in the same details I've been nervously tracking. Staff Sergeant Williams is still watching us, though he's trying to be subtle about it. The Navy commander has taken a few steps in our direction. More faces are turning our way with each passing second. "Sarah," she says, and this time she uses my first name, her voice softer. "You've been hiding for 15 years. It's not a question." "Yes, ma'am." "From your own family." "Yes, ma'am." She's quiet for a long moment, and I can practically hear the gears turning in her head. Patricia Hayes didn't get to be a general by making impulsive decisions, but she also didn't get there by avoiding difficult conversations when they needed to happen. "Your brother just graduated from one of the most elite military training programs in the world," she says finally. "Yes, ma'am. I'm very proud of him." "And your family believes you couldn't make it through basic training." The words hit like a physical blow, even though I've been living with this reality for 15 years. Hearing it stated so matter-of-factly by someone who knows the truth makes it sound even more absurd than it already is. "Yes, ma'am." General Hayes glances toward Marcus, who's now being interviewed by someone with a video camera. Probably a local news crew doing a feel-good story about hometown heroes. Dad is hovering nearby, clearly hoping to get in the shot. "Do they know what you actually did during those 6 months they think you spent washing out of basic training?" "No, ma'am." "Do they know about Kandahar?" My stomach drops. "No, ma'am." "Do they know about the operation in Syria that saved 37 American hostages?" "General Hayes, please." "Do they know their daughter received the Distinguished Service Cross for actions that are still classified at the highest levels?" Each question is like a nail being driven into a coffin. The coffin containing 15 years of carefully constructed family mythology. "No, ma'am, they don't know any of that." She nods slowly, her expression unreadable. Around us, the crowd continues to celebrate. Families posing for pictures, new SEALs accepting congratulations from friends and relatives. Normal people having a normal celebration of military achievement. Except nothing about this situation is normal. "Why?" she asks simply. It's the question I've been dreading for 15 years. The question I ask myself every Christmas dinner, every family gathering, every time someone makes a comment about Marcus being the successful child while I'm the disappointment. Why did I let them believe I failed when the truth would make them proud? "You know why," I say quietly. "The work I did, the places I went, the things I saw. Deep cover operations don't come with press releases and family notifications. When I got recruited out of OCS for intelligence work, the cover story was that I washed out of basic training. It was supposed to be temporary. 15 years is a long time for a temporary cover story. The missions kept coming, and every year it got harder to explain without revealing classified information. And eventually, I trail off, not sure how to explain the psychology of it. Eventually, it became easier to let them think less of you than to risk exposing operations that saved American lives. General Hayes finishes for me. "Yes, ma'am." She's quiet again, but I can see something shifting in her expression. The careful neutrality is giving way to something that looks almost like anger. Not at me, I don't think. At the situation, maybe. At the impossible choice I was forced to make between family relationships and national security. "Sarah," she says, and her voice has taken on the tone she used to use during mission briefings. Serious, purposeful, like she's about to give me new orders. "Look around this room." I follow her gaze. The ceremony hall is still full of celebrating families, but I'm starting to notice details I missed before. Staff Sergeant Williams isn't the only one watching us anymore. There's a Marine major by the refreshment table who keeps glancing our way. A Navy lieutenant near the stage who's trying to get a better angle to see us clearly. "How many people in this room do you think know who you really are?" General Hayes asks. The question hits me like cold water. I've been so focused on hiding from my family that I hadn't considered the other military personnel in attendance. People who might have worked with me, or worked with people who worked with me, or simply heard stories through the invisible networks that connect special operations communities? I don't know, I admit. I count at least 6 people who've recognized you in the last 5 minutes, she says calmly. Staff Sergeant Williams served with you in Afghanistan. Major Rodriguez was part of the extraction team that pulled you out of Syria. Lieutenant Chen briefed you before the Kandahar operation. And that's just the ones I can see from here. My heart is pounding so hard, I'm surprised she can't hear it. General, your cover isn't as solid as you think it is, she continues. The military community is smaller than people realize, especially at the level where you operated. People talk. Stories get shared. Your reputation, Colonel Martinez's reputation, exists independently of whatever story you've told your family. As if to prove her point, Major Rodriguez chooses that moment to walk in our direction. His face lights up with recognition as he gets closer, and he's already starting to straighten into attention posture. Colonel Martinez, he says, loud enough that several people nearby turn to look. I can't believe it's you. Ma'am, it's an honor to see you again. And just like that, the careful balance I've maintained for 15 years begins to crumble. The words Colonel Martinez, spoken loudly in a crowded room full of military families, have the same effect as dropping a stone into still water. Conversations pause. Heads turn. People start looking around to see who this colonel is and why Major Rodriguez seems so excited to see her, including my family. I watch in slow-motion horror as my father's head turns in our direction. He's still standing with Marcus and the news crew, but something in Major Rodriguez's tone made him look up. Dad's eyes find me first, still partially hidden behind the concrete pillar, then move to General Hayes, then to Major Rodriguez, who's still beaming like he's just run into his favorite professor at a high school reunion. Dad's expression shifts from confusion to something I can't quite identify. Curiosity, maybe, or concern. He says something to Marcus, who also turns to look in our direction. Rodriguez, General Hayes says smoothly, perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. But Major Rodriguez is clearly too excited to take the hint. Ma'am, I've been hoping to run into you again for years. What you did in Syria, hell, what you did throughout that whole deployment, we still talk about it. That operation wouldn't have succeeded without your intelligence work. More heads turning, more conversations stopping. The ripple effect spreading outward through the crowd like a shockwave. My mother has noticed the disturbance now, too. She's looking our way with the expression she gets when she's trying to figure out what's happening, but doesn't want to be caught staring. The same expression she had when the neighbors got divorced, and she was trying to gather gossip without being obvious about it. Ma'am, Major Rodriguez continues, apparently oblivious to the growing attention. Are you here for the ceremony? Do you know someone in Class 348? Before I can answer, another voice joins the conversation. Colonel Martinez? It's Staff Sergeant Williams, who's finally decided to approach. Ma'am, I thought that was you. I wasn't sure if I should, given the circumstances, but Major Rodriguez? He trails off, clearly confused by the situation. 3 military personnel calling me Colonel Martinez in the space of 2 minutes, in a room full of celebrating families, while my parents watch from 30 yards away, trying to figure out why their daughter, the Navy dropout, seems to be the center of attention among senior military officials. The jig, as they say, is up. General Hayes looks at me with something that might be sympathy or might be resignation, or might be the expression of a commanding officer who's about to make a decision that's going to change everything. Colonel Martinez, she says, her voice carrying clearly across the suddenly quieter ceremony hall. I believe it's time. Time. Such a simple word, but loaded with 15 years of hidden truth. I look across the room at my parents, who are now openly staring in our direction. At Marcus, who's broken away from the news crew and is walking toward us with the expression he gets when he's trying to solve a puzzle. At the growing circle of military personnel who are beginning to realize that something significant is happening. At the 15 years of family disappointment that are about to collide head-on with the truth I've been hiding. General Hayes steps forward, positioning herself where she can address not just me, but the growing crowd of onlookers. Ladies and gentlemen, she says, her voice carrying the authority of decades of command, I have the unexpected honor of introducing someone very special. The entire ceremony hall seems to hold its breath. Colonel Sarah Martinez, United States Army Special Operations, recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross for classified operations in Afghanistan and Syria. One of the finest soldiers I've ever had the privilege to command. The words hit the room like artillery fire. Silence. Complete, absolute silence as 300 people process what they just heard. Colonel Sarah Martinez, Distinguished Service Cross, classified operations. My father's jaw doesn't just drop, it falls open like a broken hinge. My mother's face goes completely white. Marcus stops walking and just stands there, frozen, like someone hit pause on his entire existence. And then, like a dam bursting, the questions start. Colonel? Sarah's in the Army? Distinguished Service Cross? Wait, isn't she the one who... Classified operations? My family's carefully constructed narrative. 15 years of Sarah the dropout, Sarah the disappointment, Sarah who couldn't hack it in the military, disintegrates in real time. General Hayes continues, her voice cutting through the growing murmur of confused conversations. For 15 years, Colonel Martinez has allowed her family to believe she failed in military service in order to protect the classified nature of operations that saved American lives. Her sacrifice, both to her country and to her family relationships, represents the highest tradition of military service. She turns to look directly at my parents, who are still standing frozen by the news crew. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, your daughter didn't fail basic training. She was recruited directly from officer candidate school into Army Special Operations. She has served with distinction in some of the most dangerous places on Earth, conducting missions that most people will never know about and can never be publicly acknowledged. Dad finally closes his mouth, but his eyes haven't left my face. The expression there is complicated. Shock, obviously. Confusion. And underneath it all, the beginning of understanding. Understanding that every disappointed comment, every comparison to Marcus, every family gathering where I was treated as the cautionary tale was based on a lie. A lie I told to protect national security. A lie I maintained for 15 years, at the cost of my relationship with my family. Mom finds her voice first. Sarah. The word comes out small, confused, like she's not sure she's talking to the same person who's been sitting at their dinner table for the past decade and a half. I step out from behind the concrete pillar into the full light of the ceremony hall. Into the center of attention I've been avoiding for 15 years. Hi, Mom, I say quietly. We need to talk.